Welcome to FiXT Academy. Excited to have Todd McCarty here. And he's going to be talking about building your band the right way, workflow strategy, and attracting a team. And before we dig in, we always kick these off with our mission here at FiXT Academy, which falls under our mission at FiXT, our label. But the mission is to empower artists to build sustainable careers in ways not previously possible to them. And I won't read Todd's full bio here. There's a lot to take in, but you've had an exciting career in the music industry over 20 plus years. 13 years as general manager of Fearless Records, working with some very household names, later senior VP at Sony Music USA, worked on some platinum releases, gold releases, lots of exciting accolades. But then you ended up in management and moved to Japan. And your current roster, Crystal Lake, Mirror Cell, Advent, Soft Spoken, and Shallow Sky. And then you have your own education platform and Builder Academy, which I'm sure you'll share a little bit about. But super excited to have you. And we're going to dive right in and let you share some of your experience and wisdom with us. And would love to turn it over to you, Todd.
Thanks for having me, James. I'm a fan of what you're doing with the label and FiXT Academy. The education stuff is super passionate for me. That's one of the things I really love doing. So I was just excited that you invited me to come on and talk to everybody. So yeah, today I wanted to talk about some foundational things, a simple workflow, and I sort of mean that, like get down to basics. And then one of the things I was asked to talk about also is building a team, but that's very cart before the horse before we dive into some foundational stuff and marketing mindset, your vision, your culture, all of that stuff. I think you mentioned, so now I'm doing artist management. I have an active roster of 5 artists, 1 in Japan, 4 in the United States, but I also consult for artists, doing coaching and artist development, a lot of ground up type stuff, like in the beginning stages. And I consult for maybe another dozen artists doing that type of work. And we also have an ad agency and we book ads and all that stuff. So I'm getting, and then through my Band Builder Academy, I'm getting a lot of artists with all different spectrums on their path. And I get a lot of the same type of questions. And I get a lot of people that are hardworking, talented, ready to go, but they tend to skip steps. And maybe all of us do that. It's human nature. We love to try to get to where we're going as fast as possible. But I did think it's, whether you're just getting started, or you're on like your first 10 songs, or you've been around for 20 years, I think this information is good to review every once in a while, and everybody should know it. So, I'm going to start with the obligatory, you got to make great music. And I'll take that. Actually, I'm not the guy that you should be on a webinar for production and making these songs, even songwriting. I am a musician and I was a musician, but I'm just not the best. But what I can tell you from my point of view is you really don't need my advice until you've got the music stuff figured out and your production workflow. I'm going to give you a marketing and song release workflow towards the end of the presentation. But I want to repeat that, I'm not your guy if you don't have the music down. So great songs is simply writing 100 or 200 songs until you've really got the feel for it. Or it could be teaming up with a producer that you really like, or a beat maker that you really like, and teaming up and coming up with like a songwriting team or a production team. And finding a production team takes a while. It takes a lot of trial and error and misses, and it can get expensive. So
you mentioned 100 or 200 songs. I actually want to jump in there. You think the volume of when somebody is developing their craft on that side, it takes a lot of attempts to learn that craft and hone that in. So I think somebody hearing 100 or 200 songs to really dial in what they're doing may sound intimidating, but that's probably the reality of it takes writing hundreds of crappy demos before you probably get the chops there to really write a good song.
Yeah. And they might have done it. I mean, if you've been a musician since you're 12 or 14 or whatever, maybe you've put your 100, 200 in and you don't even know it. And it could just be writing an idea and throwing that in the trash can. But So let me up the number to 500 then, like go big because it's like YouTube creators will tell you like they had to make 200 YouTube videos and suck at it before they started being good at it. Social media, we're going to talk a lot about that. You got to go through it and really, really put yourself through the volume of posts to get good at it. So same thing with your songwriting. And yeah, so and then your production team, I think you really have to know what you want. You have to, in some regards, a lot of songwriters and musicians and artists, of course, everybody wants to be original, but in some ways we're emulating the great songwriters or the great artists that we grew up loving. And that's okay. Emulating is not copying or plagiarism. It's striving to take in what the input is and make something different or improve upon it. Emulating is about improving on what you're inspired by. So don't take that as plagiarism or, copying. So get your songwriting team and make sure you're working with people that have done music that you like, so go and find out who produced, who wrote, who recorded and engineered, and who mixed all the records that you like. And it's not too crazy to think that you can work with those people because they have a budget for every shape and size artist. So don't think that there's a wall you can't get over on that. Don't compromise on your music because without it, there's not much of a future. The other part about that I wanted to say is like culture. And I'll bring up culture a couple times on the call, but like make sure that you're singing a style of music that you live and breathe in, that you're part of that culture and you understand it and you're a student of that culture. You follow whatever it is, the TV shows, the video games, the social media, films, all that stuff. Like make sure that you're a good fit for the type of music you're in. And also if you have a group, make sure everybody's bought into that culture and is a part of that because it can get really messy when you've got a group of people that aren't really into it, so that culture is going to become important when you're marketing your music. So I really want you to think about that and understand it. So the other thing is if you're just getting started, I know many of you probably already have your project going, but if you're just getting started, I think there's two ways you can go. You can go like all quality, like I want to have everything planned. I want to have all my songs done and have my best laid plans and roll it out in a sexy way and be competitive right from the start and try to make your project grow quickly. There's that mindset. And then there's the sort of sandbox, just get started, because like some people get so paralyzed about doing everything perfectly and right that they just forget to go out and execute and just do stuff. So the other side of it is just to like maybe test on YouTube or SoundCloud, TikTok. Those are all great places to just play around, experiment, come up with a fake artist name, drop some songs out there. And, I've seen people stumble into things like that and just like land on something. So there is of those two ways, there's no right or wrong, but you sort of need to make a decision on how you're going to go. And if you're not sure, then just experiment with YouTube and SoundCloud and put stuff up, do cover songs or whatever. But if you feel like you've got a hang of it, one thing I do recommend is kind of the experimenting, go through the motions of learning how to, do your social media or launch a YouTube video. Cause all of that you learn in that process is going to help you for your real project. And if you do go the option of quality and releasing your stuff out of the gates with a strong debut, you're going to run into some stumbling blocks if you've never done this before. There's a lot of like distribution things. There's a lot of challenges with YouTube and TikTok and social media. So you really got to kind of learn those tools. You're going to want to get good at CapCut, all of those type of things. I guess while I'm on that subject, well, no, we'll leave that for later. But I guess those are the foundational things I wanted to talk about. And for those of you thinking about how should I get started or what comes before actually releasing music. Next thing I wanted to do was talk about your marketing mindset. And this is something that, most people in music are really excited and passionate about the music making, the creation side of it and the performing side of it. And marketing, sure, you might be passionate about it, but it's always a little bit of a mystery. When I first started and I was playing in bands and even when I got to the record labels, I don't think I really fully understood the differences between marketing and promotion and branding and all of that. I just kind of jumbled them all together. But marketing, just think of marketing as it sits at the top. It's lots of things. It presides over all the other things like publicity, radio, social media, branding, promotion. All those different things sit under marketing. And the word market is important because that's what you're trying to find, your market. And so all of that is trying to use all these different tools of marketing to get to your market. So for example, promotion. What is promotion? It's the individual act of promoting single things like a song or a music video or a concert. That's promotion, rallying all your resources to promote a specific thing. And then branding. It's my favorite. I think it's the most important. It's so competitive. In your genre, there's literally like thousands of artists competing with you, and a lot of them are looking at each other and doing the same types of things. Branding is what's going to like separate you. And I really believe in it. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. The other thing that I learned about marketing, and it's like not a music marketing thing. This applies to all business. It was a guy named Al Rise said this. He has the single best definition of marketing ever put out there. It's marketing is a battle of perception, not products. I'll repeat it because it's important. Marketing is a battle of perceptions, not products. And just think about that. Our product being music, it really means that the person with the best music doesn't always win. It's kind of who's perceived to be the biggest artist or has the best music or is the best songwriter or is the best performer or is the coolest, like all of those things sort of matter. And that's your marketing mindset is like, you can't I shouldn't use the word can't because you can make a great record and have better music than everybody else. And I've seen cases, you can look this one up or write it down. It's called Wild Party. This project I worked from an indie band from New York in like 2009. They had great music. We knew it. We promoted it like crazy. It didn't work. It was a failed project after 2 years. The band all quit their jobs. Quit the band, went to work their day jobs. 8, 9 years later, the algorithm just took that music with no promotion, nothing, just dead. 250 million streams on Spotify.
Oh,
wow. And that's not even YouTube and Amazon and Apple. So it's true. The music is so important, but like they all went to their day jobs. They weren't really working as musicians. That was just the algorithm. So what you really want is that combination of marketing and branding and good music.
We do have a couple questions already popping in on this topic. In the Q&A chat, Cody is asking, what would you consider to be the most valuable bang for your buck platform to focus your efforts on marketing in 2026? I understand diversifying, but if you're using a marketing budget, where should the focus for that ad spend?
Well, I think I'm really split between TikTok and Instagram. It depends on the artist, depends on the age, the culture. But that short form content is probably where I'm going to tell you to put your work, your hard work into that after you're done with the music, of course.
So short form video?
Yeah. I've personally managed and consulted for artists like Ella Red, where it was Spotify and Instagram and a little bit of TikTok, but it was like the TikTok was really just repurposing the Instagram reels. But just that alone, she's got over a million monthly listeners now, and she's 21 years old.
That's awesome.
And, she was thinking about being an au pair in France just like 2.5 years ago. She was debating whether she should give the music thing a go or go live in France and be young and have fun there. And she documented every step of that journey on Instagram and had good music. And we worked on her Spotify and her Instagram almost exclusively. And when I give you the workflow at the end of the day, it kind of tells you this, like, keep it simple.
Yeah.
Just focus on that. So it's a great question, Cody. I kind of want you to narrow your marketing efforts because you're probably a newer artist without a big team and behind you. So just be really good at a couple things. Spotify is the most helpful and easy one because they give you all the tools, not because they're the biggest. It's because they give you all of the analytics, all of the creator tools.
Yeah.
You can sell merch on there. You can do all sorts of cool stuff. So that's the best DSP to focus your energies on. And they publicly post your numbers. So if you do well, you can prove it.
Yeah. Spencer just jumped into the Q&A, and yeah, I see it went in the main chat originally. Sorry for missing that. Spencer asks, what do you feel is the best way to stand out and market yourself in a sea of 1,000 similar artists?
That's a great question too. Well, I'm going to go back to branding, but narrow your audience. You need to get a foothold. So the best way is not to do what everybody else is doing, because then you're just competing. If you come up with original ideas and you have a very narrow target and you're speaking directly to that audience, you're more likely to get a foothold with that audience. So like take the, this isn't Spencer from Ice Nine Kills, is it? Because I was just going to bring up what Spencer from Ice Nine Kills did is went full on to film horror movies and horror fiction, like Edgar Allan Poe type stuff and movies, like horror movies. Like he got a foothold in that culture. There's the word culture again. And that was his market. There's marketing. So narrow your audiences and come up with like original ideas. Now, this is emulation as well. I know everybody likes to think, well, I already have original ideas. I'm already doing that. And that's good. Or some of you might be like, there's nothing original. Everything, like everybody's doing self-help and everybody's doing love songs and all this. Like it's hard to be original, and it is. So my advice would be like, try to take your two passions. I see this in like podcasts, like cooking and film or history and comedy or whatever it is. Take two of your passions and try to mix them, or take two genres that you love and mix those genres, or just try to grab on to something in culture, like that you're passionate about, that you can believe on, that you can show up for your audience every day. You can put on your work face and show up for your audience and be passionate about what you're doing. And that alone is going to like resonate with that narrow audience I'm telling you to target.
Yeah, that really echoes a conversation I was just having yesterday with another artist manager who was sharing that he's been encouraging his artists, like everyone wants to have mainstream success, but when they target super wide, they end up becoming so generic that a lot of the people that catch it are only not that interested. By the time their funnel narrows down, they kind of have a small audience that they actually really capture. But when they start much more focused in niche, it may not appeal to as many people in the global world, but that audience that they're targeting, they're much more likely in that niche to actually respond to what they're doing. And they might actually capture a lot more fans than when they start so generic.
That's a good point. It made me think of something else. Like, look, you got to get to 10,000 listeners a month on Spotify, because if you do that, it opens up big parts of the algorithm that you're not going to get if you have under 10,000 monthly listeners. But don't cheat. Get the real listeners and use the early algorithm stuff like release radar, mixes, radio, autoplay to get to the 10,000. But a lot of musicians that come to me are focused on their monthly listeners. It's the wrong metric to focus on. I get it. Up to 10,000, you gotta worry about that. You want to get to that point. But after 10,000, you should not be focused on that number. You want to be focused on streams per listener, because streams per listener is how you get rich, and streams per listener is how you grow in the algorithm. That's engagement. It's the best form of engagement. Listening to your music all the way through and streaming in a session, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of your songs in a session. Other than what most artists are doing wrong is they're buying onto playlists or paying an influencer to just go get them 20,000 single listeners that are going to listen to your song once. So yeah, you got 20,000 monthly listeners, but they only streamed it once or 1.5 times, maybe twice. So you got 20,000 listeners, 40 streams. That sucks. I'm sorry, but that sucks. You want 20,000 listeners listening 7, 8, 9 times in a month on average. Some are going to listen 60, 70, 80 times. Some are going to listen 2 or 3 times. But look at what that does at 100,000 monthly listeners. If you've got 100,000 monthly listeners listening 1.5 times, that's 150,000 streams, and that sucks. If you have them listening 7, 8, 9, 10 times, well, then you got 1 million streams for that month with those 100,000 listeners. You made $5,000, $4,000 that month, and you're making real money. So that's what you want to aim for. Also, by the way, streams per listener is how you get the algorithm going. So would you want to make an album and like press a vinyl record and have anybody listen to one song on that vinyl record? You wouldn't do that, right? You want them to listen to the whole record.
Yeah.
All right, that was a little divergence there. So culture or vision, we talked a little bit about that. Know your advantage. So like really like I don't know if you have something like this exercise in your academy, James, but in mine we have like these little questionnaires where it kind of digs in like, you know, tell your story. What are your strengths? What do you like? Do you like video? Do you like audio? Do you like to be funny? Do you like to be serious? Like sort of understand yourself like that. And then also know what culture you fit into. I won't repeat that because we did it. But yeah, I think you also want to be able to think long term. You know, like I see a lot of new artists having an identity crisis and just trying to do different things. And every campaign, they're just changing themselves up. This is where branding and your culture and your identity really helps build your audience. And like I said, you want to show up for this audience almost every day. So you want to be consistent and think long term about what you're doing. I think the next thing I really wanted to hammer on is before we get to releasing the music is social media. And I know you guys are tired of hearing about this one too. And I honestly personally don't like social media for myself. Like I just don't enjoy it. It's not my thing. It sort of stresses me out, it wears me down. But I do enough of it for my own business. And it's difficult for me to say this to musicians I work with and artists because it sounds hypocritical if I don't personally like it and they don't, and they have to. They kind of have to. Like the
Yeah.
reality is, unless you're in like certain genres that, you know, don't really require social media, you're going to be performing and making video content. You need to be good at social media. You don't just need to be good, you need to be really good at it, like above average. And the thing is the people that are good at social media, they're really frustrated because they're putting in the work. They're spending the time and hours. They're posting almost every day, but it's just good. And Instagram and TikTok aren't looking for good. They're looking for great. They're
Yeah.
looking for above average. So if you are struggling on that, it's really just because you're not kicking ass. You're not really coming up with the ideation and executing and trying different things, experimenting, using different media forms. So I just also wanted to kind of say that regretfully, I have to say you got to get good at social media. You got to be really good at it. It goes back to marketing is a battle of perceptions, not products. And you have to really take that to heart. You want to get on the bigger tours, you want to get on the festivals, be great at social media. You want to have 15 streams per listener, diehard fans that buy all of your merch. Don't be good. You got to be great at your social media.
You know,
And I sound like a jerk saying all that stuff.
well, I was going to throw out one other perspective on that for some artists who maybe realize they like producing or making music, and maybe some of this comes back to what their aspirations are, what they're trying to accomplish. You know, to be a commercially successful band or project. But I have seen, you know, there are some other paths out there for creators who maybe are focusing on music for sync and film, TV, or production music, where maybe there is a path available to be a musician and not be a front-facing social media-driven brand. But if you're trying to be a commercially successful, you know, blowing up on tours and charting and radio, it is definitely part of the game. Um, but there could be other avenues for somebody to pursue if that's not the right path.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. And if you look at the industry pre-social media, there was always this element to it. You know, Jerry Lee Lewis, who would jump up and down and stomp on his piano. What was he doing? He was creating a viral moment, you know, like Elvis Presley. I mean, going back all the greats, you know, then you've got like David Bowie, or you've got Marilyn Manson, who would shock people, or Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails. He was like, his videos couldn't even be played on the music TV stuff because they were so raunchy, so dirty, violent, you know, they just couldn't be played. So it's like, you've got to think about that. Like, you've got to shake people out of their comfort zone and get them to listen to you. And you have to think about what would those performers and superstars pre-social media, what would they do if they were in your shoes now and in 2026 and had to jump on Instagram or TikTok and do something? What would they do? So think about it like that.
Yeah. There's another question here we can throw in. Spencer's asking, what do you say is best practices at getting better for creating content for social media? And also, how important is it to run ads on socials as well? Or is the algorithm possible to achieve this without serious ad dollars? You want to take all of that or
Well,
in
that one
pieces?
first. A great question, Spencer. But the the advertising algorithm and the organic algorithm are totally detached. Like they just are, because otherwise you'd be able to just buy your way to success. But the ads, I do recommend in the early stage investing in your Instagram boosted post ads to grow. There's a goal on the Instagram app builder. I'm not talking about Facebook ad manager. Just like when you pull up the Instagram app, there's a boost post button on some of your posts. There's a goal called engage with my profile, which is basically help me get followers on my profile. That won't directly like make your post go viral and make your channel successful. But if you are boosting the right posts, the ones that are getting good engagement, what happens is after that person sees your ad and engages with your ad, that person will for the next 2 or 3 days get fed, served in the on their feed or whatever in their reels or stories. They'll get served your stuff. So you will have like 2 or 3 more at bats with that person you advertise to. So in that regard, the ads help because you have another chance to get, you have 3 more chances probably to get in front of them. So in that regard, the ad server and the algorithm are not detached. You can kind of get back in front of them. So yeah, do that. If you have a budget for it, it's a good investment in the early days, but just make sure when you do it that you've got maybe your top 3 performing posts pinned on your Instagram profile. And also make sure like your most 3 or 4 recent Instagram posts are really good ones. So try to boost your posts at a time when you have a little momentum going on Instagram where you feel like you've got your best 2, 3 weeks of content going. That's the time to boost it, because when you get those follow-ups, they're going to be seeing good content that's going to rope them in. Put your hooks up front. Sorry, what was the first part of that?
Yeah. The first part, what do you say is the best practice at getting better for creating content for social media?
That's easy. Be a student of the game. I say I don't like actually post a lot of social media content, but I do consume it. I'm watching it, not just in music, like from comedy stuff and photography and podcast stuff, or even the ads. Like I there's some good advertisers. I'll look at the ads and see what they're doing in those ads to try to figure out some of the strategies. So consume everything, and that's getting ideas. And I write them down. I do screen recordings on my phone so that I don't forget them and go back and look at them. I keep a spreadsheet of all these little ideas that I find and I write them down. There's just some really brilliant content out there. And the good news is the algorithm, it surfaces it, shows it all you. So if you just go through like what the homepage is or what the, like any hashtag, it'll put the best posts in that hashtag there for you in plain view to see. So I think just be a good student of the game and consume it. Something that makes me think of, I bet you the best people at social media spend 70% of their time consuming social media and 30% of their time creating social media. And I learned that from a Spotify official curator and editor. They told me they spend 70% of their time sequencing the playlist, like looking at the data and making sure they got the right playlist flow, and
Yeah.
only 30% of their time looking for new artists to put into that playlist. So it's like, it really is about that quality and experience.
One other thing, if you're running ads, a little tip to think about, you got to really look at your profile through the lens of what new eyes would see if they come. They get your ad, they're interested. Now they click to your profile. Is your profile ready for new people? Are your links, your link in bio? Be surprised sometimes you're so focused on pushing this piece of content that you haven't thought ahead to what if they actually come and click on your profile? Are you ready to receive more people engaging with you? And sometimes people have broken links. They haven't updated things in a while. So really think through, as somebody discovers you and they come to your profile, is it ready for those people to discover you?
Yeah. Capturing an email list, going to your show, like your shows. I use Bands in Town is a really great thing because people will track you on there You can email them. So that's a good point. So social media, I pounded on that a lot. I think for newer artists, releasing singles is the way to go. And not just like record 2 songs, put them out 2 or 3 months apart, and then go away for 5, 6 months and come back with another 2 songs. You really should be batching your songs in groups of like 4, 5, 6, if you can afford that. And when you release these singles, I recommend, if possible, if you don't have features or they're cover songs or something, if possible, I would use the waterfall strategy. So it's like where you release single number 1 as a standalone single by itself. When single 2 comes out, and hopefully it's like 2 months later or 5 weeks later or whatever, release that song and then put the old track number 1, move that to track number 2. So you now have a 2-song single, and so on and so forth. So that when your third song comes out, it has the 3 songs, because those are going to stack up. The algorithm, remember earlier I said it's about streams per listener. You don't want these 1-for-1 situations where you do all this expensive marketing and you put all this effort in to just get a 1-for-1 situation. No, you want them listening to multiple songs per session. So this strategy for new artists is extremely important. Not so much for bigger artists because their algorithms are already powerful, but for smaller artists, it's super important. Playing shows, if it depends on your genre, if you're doing like mood music or sync music or neoclassical or meditation music, nature sounds, of course, you don't need to tour and play shows. But if you're trying to be commercially successful and make this your career, and you're playing a type of music where live music is part of the culture, you have to do it. I mean, you just got to, whether it's locally, regionally, but you need it for your social media. You need buy-in from your fans that you really do live and breathe in that culture that they're in. So most likely live music has to do with that. There's plenty of cases of people getting big on TikTok and Instagram and Spotify without playing shows. But I wonder what their streams per listener are. I wonder how many merch sales they have. You know, I wonder how much money they're really making, because it could be that they only have 2 or 3 streams per listener. It could be all algorithmic play and they're really not making that much money. So I really think if you're playing a genre of music where live music is part of the culture, you got to do it. We're going to get to that workflow I was talking about, but I wanted to say another point. Don't skip steps. Don't put out an album before you have a fan base. Don't try to get a manager before you have a lemonade stand or a proof of concept. Like, managers make money from percentages, So if you're making $1,000 a month, they're making $100, $200 a month, So don't hire a publicist, a PR, if you don't have a great human interest story. And, it's too premature. So you're skipping steps. Don't do a national tour or try to get on a big, massive festival before you can draw 75, 100 kids in your own local home area. So I find a lot of artists are skipping steps. I get how do we build a team? How do we get a manager? How do we attract a record label? My answer is patience, good music, being great at social media, and not skipping steps. I don't think I need to hammer on that. I think everybody on the call listening knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's a great point, though. Yeah, the order of operations of doing some of those in the right order and not skipping steps. I think about, an artist having a big moment when they're not ready for it, and if they went to radio and the song was great, but then they have no social media presence and people go to look them up and they're not finding anything. They don't have an email list. So they have all this attention and they miss out on a lot of the upside because they didn't have all these other things ready to capture that attention. So you could have a moment and miss it, really.
That's right. Yeah. I think the last, I wanted to get into attracting a team because, I just said don't skip steps, but there are ways to do that. So proof is the first thing. If you're talking about getting a label or getting an artist manager to help you build a team around you, or maybe a booking agent to help you get on more shows, proof is everything. Proof that you have a lemonade stand. So you should be, anytime you play a show, you should have a spreadsheet that documents what the ticket price was, how many tickets sold, even possibly if you have a way to know what your contributions. Some promoters will use a clicker to say how many people were there. get everything in writing from the promoter. Keep your settlement sheets. If you have a settlement sheet that says how many people were paid, if there's any show reviews from the shows, document those. Keep a spreadsheet of all that information, because when you want to get a booking agent, they're going to ask for that, So, and then record labels have a lot of ways to tell already, how much money you're making. It's pretty easy for them. They're good at knowing how to do that. Yeah, they want to look at the proof. They want to read the YouTube comments and see that people are actually commenting and saying meaningful stuff other than just fire emojis. They're going to read the Instagram things. They're going to look at the ratio of like hearts to comments, and followers don't tell the whole story. It's, hearts and views and all of that stuff. So that can't be faked anymore. There's no serious booking agent, manager, or label that can't like smell that in like 5 seconds. So, you got to have quality, like the, the music. I'm just going to say, I don't know. Let's say if I get on a slow day, 10 things come through my email box, on a busy day, 25, it's very slim. The quality, it's like so obvious. Like when you get that much music, James, I don't know if you get a lot of submissions every day, but
Yeah.
it's just so obvious, the quality. And that's what I was going back to. People like us in the industry, we get a lot of music sent our way, tons of submissions. And it goes back to that production team, the songwriting, the 300, 200, 500 songs, whatever you want to do to get good at songwriting, building your production team. When I get music, 70, 80% of it is just like not up to snuff. It's just not good enough.
Yep.
So quality, and then commitment, like consistency, commitment. That's another thing. Like as an artist manager at when I was at the record labels, I want to know that everybody's in it to win it. These are going to be business partners. Like your job right now, whatever day job you do, or your team, or whatever team you're a part of. Imagine if you knew some of the people weren't really in it. Like, they're your business partners or your teammates. So if we're not seeing the consistency and the commitment, it's done. Like we're not going to get involved.
Yeah.
So that means if we look at your social media and we see that 6 days went by and there wasn't anything, or 2 weeks, you suck at social media. Sorry, we're not gonna take you seriously. So you gotta put the work in and be committed to it. Patience. This is one you might not expect, like when you talk about attracting a team, but there's some, all of us in the industry have examples where it was pretty like quick, but they're the minority. Most, I've signed contracts, record contracts for about 100, over 100 artists. I've consulted and managed and had hundreds of like artists through my academy. Very few go really quick. That's the exception. So let's just say 5 years is kind of like what's needed. You've got to be patient. You've got to be committed and know that it's a long road. Even in the cases of things that went quick, I mentioned Ella Red earlier on the call. It was like 2 years until she had 300,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. That's quick. But what you might not see unless you watch her social media, and she tells the whole story. But there was violin lessons, school stuff. There was writing songs, writing poetry. There was all these other things that happened before. You watch her story about how it happened, and then you see her playing her cello, like, right, this really good cello player. You're like, holy cow, like her music has nothing, it's pop music, but then she shreds on a cello. It's like, you could tell she put the work in. It wasn't just 2 years. It was age 12 to 20, 21 or whatever. So that's 9 years. So it takes that patience, and patience with your team too, like, just because you get an agent, a label, or a manager, it doesn't mean that everything happens quick. So that's something. And if we get on the phone with an artist and we're picking up those signals where they're just like wanting to skip steps, they're not showing patience, that's not going to be a good business partner. Also, in some of these feel out calls, when you're building your team, we're looking for like, are these people good business partners? They make good decisions. And if we look at your track record and see that you make a series of bad decisions, well, you're showing that you probably don't make good decisions. So we want to think about that too. Outreach. I mean, yeah, I'm okay with, if you don't, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So hustle, email, write a good email, keep it short, keep it brief. Even if you just give us a Spotify link or a YouTube link and say, hey, can you check out my music? And you give us nothing, we know what to do. Right, James?
Yeah.
We know how to find you on Instagram and
Yep.
TikTok and YouTube. We know how to dig in to figure out what you've done. We can do it in 10 minutes. We do it
And
all
when
day
it's
long.
great,
So
we're going to follow up.
yeah.
Yeah.
So don't think you have to impress us. Like we're just like you. We were probably musicians. We've been in your shoes. We've been on the other end of this and we know what we're doing. So don't think you have to have a press kit or a big list. If you're a newer artist, of course, we don't expect you to have a long list of talking points, but have great music, have a great video. That's all you need. Have decent social media. If you've been around for a year and your social media is not that good, then you need to go back and work on that before you send out that email. Also, when you have a big moment, when you have something exciting to talk about, you just got a big tour or you landed a festival or your song just took off. That's when you should hit us up. Don't hit us up when you're in the doldrums, when you're having a rough go. Like hit us up when there's something exciting happening. Hit us up after you've had 3 or 4 really good Instagram posts or TikToks. That's the time to hit us up when it looks really good. So any questions about that? Maybe?
Yeah. Anybody have a question on that? Throw it in. We have one in here that was from a few minutes ago. I'll go ahead and read that. Another one from Spencer. What about some tips for a band that isn't all in the same location? Is it possible to grow enough before playing shows?
Yeah, it is. You just got to be doing the social media and releasing your release strategy on Spotify and learning how to use all the different algorithmic features that Spotify has and how to understand their recommendation engine on Spotify. It's super powerful. And I see artists do really well and get there. One of the artists I managed called Shallow Sky didn't play shows for the first 3 or 4 years, even 5 years. And they've only recently started playing shows. 3 of the guys live in Phoenix. One of the guy lives in Salt Lake City, but they're making it work. So there's definitely ways to get popular if you're not playing shows. But it just goes back to what I said. Like if you want to have that proof of concept to build a team and to get attraction, you've got to show some money, and the money's going to come from 7, 8, 9, 10 streams on average per listener. It's going to come from ticket sales and merch. Yeah. So just know that that's the proof of concept I'm talking about, that you've got to show your team if you're going to ask a manager to join you or a label to get involved. Also, like, remember commitment. That's part of it. Like, if it's going really well and 2 of the members are saying, I don't want to tour, I want to sit at home, there goes your label chances. Labels don't want to sign bands that won't tour. And managers, they make their money from touring a lot of ways too. So if you're not going to be on the road, it makes it more difficult. I think that's all I have on the team stuff, but I think the workflow, I'm going to leave you guys with the PDF. It's like a 3-page PDF. It's a song release workflow. So it's like what I consider the ideal song release workflow that won't overwhelm you. So if you're like a solo artist, you would do it all yourself, or you have a group, but it's just usually like 1 or 2 people in the group that are really doing stuff. You don't have a bigger team of people to help. You don't have a lot of resources. It goes back to what we said earlier on the call. Like we were talking about, like, keeping things really simple, like Ella Red. It was basically Spotify and Instagram. And that's what I want you to do, is just get really good at Spotify using the algorithmic features and the recommendation engine, but also using ads. Part of the workflow is getting good at meta ads to get people off of Instagram over to Spotify, and get good people, not clicks, not traffic, but get good conversions of people that really like your stuff, so that when they land on Spotify, they don't bounce right away or listen to 10, 15 seconds of the song and leave. You want the people that are going to stream all the way through, really interested people. Getting good at that part, then getting good at social media. And you can use the social media boosted ads, that balance of organic and some paid ads to grow your followers on Instagram. And then after you master the Spotify part and the social media part, the third step is collaborations. So it could be like doing a primary artist collab with a bigger artist to where you can use their algorithm to grow you. It could be getting a feature on one of your songs. It could be like a social media influencer collab, something in your culture, podcast. Those type of collaborations are a really like way to level up quickly and big, and they sort of are like a stepping stone. Touring isn't even mentioned in the workflow. I would add that in there if you can.
Just dropped the PDF in the chat. I think everybody can grab it from there. But yeah, just so that everybody knows it's there. And we'll follow up after this and send that out in an email too.
Cool. So I think that kind of wraps it up for me. I'm willing to take any questions, but I hope I was able to just kind of, instill that there's no shortcuts here. You need to have a clear path. And if you're a newer artist, focus on getting 5 or 6 really high quality songs and releasing them in that waterfall type strategy. Do that and your Spotify and your Instagram, that combination, if you do it right and with high quality, you should be getting off to a good start.
Yeah, so anybody that wants to get some questions in, feel free to throw it in the Q&A. But while we're seeing if any pop in there, Todd, just maybe share what are some highlights from maybe some personal stories of some artists you've worked with where you've seen maybe from your band academy that you have where I don't know if you can share any either specific artists or even if it's anonymous, like an artist that came in at X and they did this and they got to Y or Z. Maybe just I don't know if anything sparks right off the top of your head with some specific stories, but would love to hear what that might spark.
Actually, all of the all of the artists that I manage currently right now, except for Miracell and Crystal Lake, Soft Spoken, Vents, and Shallow Sky all came through my academy at very humble beginnings, um, and less than 10,000 monthly listeners, maybe. And it was a lot of like what I just told you, but it was a lot of Spotify first leading that, but it was high quality stuff, like really getting the audio and the production stuff down. Ella Red came through there, Loveless came through there, Catch Your Breath, like from song number 2 or 3, Catch Your Breath. Yeah, Colorblind came through there. There's like a lot of Chase Walker as a blues artist came through there. He started, with modest numbers and worked his way up. I mean, and there's lots of examples of those, but I'm trying to think if there's one that's like where they really kind of came in at the basement level.
But you have artists that have come in at, you know, 10 10,000 monthly listeners, followed you that plan and built it into hundreds of thousands of monthly listeners with some of that basic strategy. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's accurate. I mean, Red Hook comes to mind. Yeah, yeah. Ella Red and Catch Your Breath, Cozy Zulsdorf. There's been quite a few that are at that 300,000 or more. I think Dead Eyes is getting to that 300,000 mark now. So,
I think
but
we
yeah, all came in as developing small baby bands.
I think we overcomplicate things sometimes and feel like there's going to be, 47 points that are this magic formula that you have to do. But sometimes it is just like, it's a few simple steps, being consistent, showing up, repeat, and do that. But like you said at the beginning, starting with great music.
Yeah, yeah. And in all cases, it's just that quality and the video content, the audio, the hooks, the songwriting, and commitment. Really, I think like people like, I mean, to single a few out, like Ella Red was, you know, 6 months committed on Instagram, getting her head bashed in with 20 hearts and hardly any comments for 6 7 months, and just as she was about to give up, like at the like darkest point, it just turned around. Same thing with, I remember, Dead Eyes. Zach, the singer, had his own like personal TikTok and Instagram accounts, and people were just following his cover stuff and his own personal accounts, but they weren't really jumping onto the band stuff for Dead Eyes. But he grinded so hard, 2 3 videos a day for what seems like 2 years straight. And I think he's still kind of going out, even now that they're at a higher level, he still really puts the work in. But man, just the work ethic, it really paid off. And that's, I think, if anybody's looking for like a definite sure way, it's that grind it out, and it will beat you down. And it's like, seems like at the worst point is when things start to turn around and go ready. Just as about you're ready to give up, it turns around.
And I'd add that whether you're starting out independent in your grinding, if you get a label or a management or agent, you still got to keep grinding. Sometimes artists make the mistake like, okay, I've got the manager now, I can stop, or I got the label now, I can back off. But if you really want to go to the next level, add to what you're already doing. Don't back off the gas thinking, well, now they're here, so they're running everything. The best success we've had at FiXT is when we're working in stride with the artist, both putting that effort in. So that's sometimes a false start when it's like, oh, I got the label and I can back off, and then now you just let your foot off of a bunch of the gas that was going.
I've seen that a lot of times. Uh, it corrects itself after about 9 months, and they realize, shit, we kind of backed off when we should have been leaning in. Yeah, that's a hard lesson to learn. But
We
yeah, I don't know. Like, here's the other thing. It's like throughout my career, there were times when I knew the music was good. It was so good. The artistry was great. And going back to the Fearless Records days, we usually had 10 to 15 bands on our roster at any one time. And you had your superstar big ones, then you had the kind of middle tier that were really ready, like poised to break out. And then there was always the developing bands. And we just knew sometimes that the music was so good and the art was so good. And it was frustrating to learn, like, why is it not working? Why is it, we're working just as hard on this as anything, and it's just not working sometimes. And sometimes you hear, like, not just in music, in any business, that luck is a factor, timing, luck, but also it comes back to distinguishing yourself from the competition. It's very competitive. And so when I look back at things and remind myself that marketing is a battle of perceptions, that's where it goes, you know what? We definitely had good music. We tried our best. We spent a lot of money. We put the work in, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. And that's really tough. It's a tough business that way. But don't be discouraged because, think of that Wild Party case example where, who knows, with algorithms and stuff, you could go away for 10 years and your songs, if they're really good, they come back and fill your bank account up.
we do have a few questions that came in. Julian asked, he was late getting here, so he might have missed this, but do you have any examples of creative success in regards to outreach and teamwork, like to building a team, maybe is what he's asking?
I think there's cases, I'm thinking back to the days of like the label times. Like, a lot of times it did help to have like uh, an attorney reaching out, labels and artist managers, and talk with a lot of attorneys. So having attorneys reach out sometimes. I think there's some attorneys that'll do that for a fee. I'm not sure how it works, but I do get hit up sometimes by attorneys. I think not just for labels, but in managers, like some lawyers will ask managers that sometimes. Kind of what I call circling the wagons. And if you haven't heard of this before, but just think of like the old wagon trains where in the Western movies where you use like for example, my network. I won't tell you who it is, but find out for yourself who I talk to on a daily basis. And if you could tell all of my contacts about your band, those people will start to talk to me, and I'll be hearing your name all the time. And I'll be like, okay, I need to look further into that. That's called circling the wagons. That happens. That's a thing. So there's a power tip for you.
Yeah. And whether that's an intentional strategy or when serendipity brings that about, where I'm just hearing about this from 5 unrelated places, then it's like, oh, something's really happening when it's just coming up organically.
Yeah, that can go a long ways, but it can't. You can't cheat us with the engagement, the social media, and all that stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
so.
Cody asks, what would you consider the ideal frequency for single releases? We have a good workflow that is efficient and produces quality, but are unsure of the ideal amount of time between releases for the Spotify algorithm.
4 to 8 weeks. If it accidentally goes to 12 weeks, 3 months, that's fine. You're just gonna maybe lose out on a little bit of algorithm stuff, but it's not that
And
much to be concerned about.
he had a follow up, actually, for clarity. We have 5 mixed and mastered in the pipeline, but unsure how to space them out. But I think that's the same.
4 to 8 weeks. And here's the distinguisher. Like, if you have a lot of budget and you have a good production workflow where you can put out 10, 15 songs a year, then 4 weeks. If you're budget conscious and this is costing you a lot of money for these 5 or 6 songs, and you're not going to be able to get back in the studio and get the funds to do it, then go closer to the 8-week time frame. But the asterisk here is, like, remain flexible, because let's say you get to one song and it's kicking ass, it's like really going up and it's doing well. Well, then pump the brakes on that 4 to 8 week schedule. Like, don't just like stick to your 4 to 8 week schedule. Like work that song that's doing well for 12 weeks, maybe 13, 14 weeks if you have to. Like milk it,
Yeah.
make that song. You might not get another one of these. So, fan the flames while you can. And then drop your next song and stack it. And guess what? When you put out your next song, that last song that was doing really well, it's going to be track 2 on your waterfall thing. It's going to be right under it. So they're going to listen to your new song, and then boom, they're going to hit that song again, and it's going to create an even bigger result for you on that song. So remain flexible. It's not like there's no formula of frequency that you need to stick to. Read the signals, read the data, and you'll know when to put it out. Going the opposite way, let's say you put out a song and it's just not going well. Not a lot of saves, not a lot of playlist ads. It's just not going well. It's not doesn't feel right. Well, trickle down your budget, like throttle down your budget, maybe back off, maybe speed up the release of your next song. If you were thinking it was going to be 8 weeks later, maybe get to the next song sooner. Maybe cut it down to 6 weeks. So it can go both ways.
Yeah. I also agree with that. We have, I remember a very specific example several years ago at FiXT. We put out a song and we had a release plan and we already knew what the next couple singles were. And we had like, these are the release dates. We delivered them like early so that we knew that was already in the pipeline. And one song hit and was hitting like, kick-ass metal and like some really big playlists. And when the next song came out, it fell on deaf ears, and the editorial kept the first song. And we're like, man, we should have just held off on this next one, because I feel like if we had spaced it out a little further, it would have gotten editorial attention. But they were still holding on to that last one, and we moved on too early. So being able to respond to it in real time, and adjust your plans accordingly. Yeah, we've learned that lesson.
It's a good one.
Any other questions? Want to make sure anybody has a chance to get them in before we wrap up, but appreciate everybody that's jumped in. Okay, we have one. This comes from, I'm going to call you Kay. How often does one need to post in order to be consistent? Is very often, quote unquote, the only thing that works?
No, social media is so much more complicated than you're trying to make it. It's different content post type. Like with Instagram in particular, you've got stories, reels, threads. You've got your post stuff. You need photo carousel sliders. You need like meme type content. You need a square. You need more like 4:5 aspect ratio. You need the short form stuff. You kind of need it all. And the frequency, it's like time of day is important, but also like doing like batching stuff is smart. But if it's batching like all the same type of stuff that doesn't do well, then that doesn't do you any good. So you need a little bit of variety to your content. Don't keep doing the same things if they're not working, unless, if it's decent, you're getting enough comments, and then keep doing that. But I think it's not a very simple thing. Ideation, experimentation is your best friend when it comes to that. You might like get specific on like a AI search, whether you use Gemini or ChatGPT or one of the other ones, and give them your specific scenario of how you do it, and they can give you like ChatGPT's recommendations for frequency and times of day and like different formats, whether like how many posts should I do a week? If I'm this size of an artist, how many reels should I do? How many stories? What different mix of content should I be doing? And it can give you a pretty good recommendation. I tend not to trust AI that much, but on this type of thing, I do, because what these AI things are doing is they're scouring some of the best like blog content and professional advice that has authority in those keywords. And they are surfacing some of the like high level content in terms of advice like that. So there are certain things that I do trust AI on like that. So you might try that. It might be helpful for you, but you might type it in 3 months later and get a totally different response.
Yeah. Couple more here, Spencer, and you touched on this maybe a little bit at the beginning, but what's a better focus, TikTok or Instagram?
Totally depends on your culture, your artist. But I would say if you're making short form content, at a minimum, do all three. YouTube Shorts, by the way, the ranking these days, people think Instagram Reels is the big one. It's TikTok still by a hair. YouTube Shorts is bigger than Reels. It surpassed them a year ago. And then Reels. I'm not saying that's the year ago. And then Reels. I'm not saying that's the hierarchy you should use, but just know that YouTube can't be overlooked. YouTube Shorts is really powerful, and you could get big on any one of those. You could post the exact same reel on all three and have a totally different result on all three. So you should repurpose that real short form content on all three of those: Shorts, TikTok, and Reels.
Yep. And a question here from Chase, and this one might take us on a different direction. We've been definitely focused on Spotify here, but they have their question: with Spotify not paying artists based on their new stipulations, and I see this as theft, will I still not be taken seriously by an agent if I refuse to grow my numbers there? Why will the industry only look at a platform that doesn't support artists? Why can't it be diversified among Bandcamp, Apple Music, Tidal? I think there's a handful of things you could dive into there.
Well, I think he's right, or they're right. It shouldn't be like that. And there are ways. And if you have good analytic tools that you can display all that information and present it, then you should. But the good news for you is that agents, they actually don't care too much about Spotify. Sure, if you want to get an A-level agent, their minimum is sort of like 300,000 monthly listeners on Spotify, like the big CAAs, Wassermans, all those the big agencies. But they really care about your ticket counts. What I said earlier on the call about documenting all of your shows, agents talk in terms of how many tickets is a band worth. And you can't lie about it or hide from it. It is what it is. So I've seen bands with 2,000 monthly listeners that are worth 75 to 100 tickets consistently in their market. That's impressive for a booking agent, especially if they can go out regionally, like 200 miles away from their town and do 50 kids because they've been there 3 or 4 times. That's what an agent's going to look at, not your Spotify. So the good news is for you, it's not a prerequisite to attract an agent. They just care about how many tickets are you worth.
So document and be ready to show that data in some form from some source.
Yeah. I mean, if you have that data and you don't have the Spotify, the agent would love it if he got an email one day from a band that's like, look, man, we haven't figured out our Spotify yet. It's just tough, but we're good for tickets. Here's our history. Here's the promoter contacts. You can call them. But we did 120 on a headline show. We supported and we're averaging 50 to 75 draw in these 6 markets. And you give an agent that, they'll be like, I love this email. Here's a band that has a draw that's just being honest that they can't figure out their other stuff, but they're still good for some tickets. And if you're good for 200 or 300, they're going to sign you,
Any other questions? Here we go. Kay has got another one. When a large label license only without active pitch, here, let me make sure I'm understanding this. When a large label licenses only without active pitch, how can the artist cover on their own regarding pitching? Will Submit Hub do anything? Also, with no support from the label, would you suggest the album release focus be mainly on digital marketing?
Wow, there's a lot there, but I think are we talking about pitching for playlists?
Yes, they just responded.
Well, yeah, a large label, yeah, I mean, they're of course pitching, and they don't pitch the same team that you pitch, like through Spotify for artists. They pitch through what's called the distributor and label relations teams at the various music services, and they have weekly calls and they have spreadsheets and all of that. So they're actively pitching that. What else? What?
Will Submit Hub do anything? Also, with no support from the label, would you suggest the album release focus be mainly on digital marketing?
Yes, the same workflow I said about your social media, meta ads. You might get into YouTube. I love YouTube these days. That's another platform I'm big on. They became the number 2 paying DSP recently. But yeah, digital marketing and Submit Hub, I have not had good luck with. Those playlist situations I'm talking about are a 1-for-1 situation. When I'm talking about how do we get you 7, 8, 9 streams per listener. So I would say like an artist playlist, like your This Is, or like you have a playlist of your own songs or mixed in with some other songs, is a better playlist for you to be on because it's going to have 7 or 8 or 10 of your songs that the people can listen to rather than one. So I wouldn't mess around with Submit Hub. If there is one of those playlist companies that has never burned me, that's modest, you're not trying to get millions of streams from, but it's worth the price, is Playlist Push. I've had a love-hate relationship with them because they had some bots on there, but they're totally clean, totally above bar. They play by the rules. And lately, I've been having a lot of success. If when we need a burst of playlists, third party playlists to get the song popularity score up a little bit, that's a good campaign to run. It's a little bit pricey, but it's worth it.
Yeah. Got a few more minutes if anybody else wants to get another one in there. But Todd, as we're kind of starting to wind down here, just want to thank you again for taking the time to visit with us and share some of your experience and wisdom and the PDF that we're able to pass along to everyone here. I really appreciate your support of artist development and education so that they can grow their careers. And that's why we're doing FiXT Academy and want to educate and inspire artists to build their careers.
Well, thanks for having me. I had fun. I'm passionate about this stuff, and yeah, you guys can find me at Band Builder Academy or my social media. I think we'll put some links there. But I wish you guys a bunch of luck. Hope the information was helpful. And James, I just really commend you for the stuff you're doing with the FiXT Academy, and love your label and all your artists and your team. So thanks to your team for helping organize this as well.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, Todd, and for everybody that was able to pop in throughout the event here. Thank you guys. See you guys, a bunch of you saying thanks in the window. So yes, thanks for all of you hanging out. Thanks
Again.
everybody. Have a great night, and we'll sign off here.
All right.
Talk soon.
Bye-bye.
See ya.